Ben stepped off the small human shuttle and looked around at the dusty ground of Veltrium. The air was dry, and the sky above was a pale gray. He could feel eyes on him from all directions. Alien eyes. Most Veltrionians didn't trust humans, and Ben knew why. The last time humans had been here, it didn't end well. He adjusted the strap of his bag and walked toward the waiting platform where a group of alien officials stood. They all wore the same dark robes, their skins smooth and colored and soft. Shades of blue and green. Among them stood a tall female with silver-gray eyes. She looked at him like she already regretted being there. "You must be Ben," she said. Her voice was calm, but her tone was cold. "I'm Rena. I've been ordered to guide you. Don't expect me to enjoy it." Ben gave her a small smile. "Thanks for the welcome. I promise not to be too much trouble." "You already are," she said, then turned and started walking without waiting. Ben followed her, dragging his feet through the dusty road that led toward the transport station. He tried to stay cheerful, but it wasn't easy. The looks from the other Veltrionians were sharp, almost angry. Some whispered, some turned away. "They don't like humans much, do they?" Ben asked. Rena didn't even look at him. "We remember." "What happened? We remember who dropped bombs on our cities and called it peacekeeping?" Ben sighed. "I wasn't even born back then, but you wear the same uniform. You fly the same flag." There was no point arguing. Ben understood why. They were angry. Wasn't here to defend the past. He was here to build something new if they gave him a chance. The transport pod was old and cramped. With just enough room for 2 people, it floated above the ground and hummed softly as they climbed in. Rena sat on one side, arms crossed. Ben sat across from her, trying not to make things worse. "How long until we reach the capital?" he asked. 2 days, she replied, not looking at him. "We'll stop overnight halfway. Stay out of my way, and we won't have a problem." Leaned back and stared out the window. It's outside. The rocky lands of Veltrion passed by. Dry hills, broken buildings, and signs of old battles were everywhere. This planet still hadn't healed. Neither had its people. As night came, the pod slowed to a stop near a rest station. It was nothing more than a dome-shaped shelter with a few beds and a heater. Rena went straight inside without a word. Ben followed, setting his bag near a wall. "We'll leave at sunrise," she said. "Don't make me wait." "Got it." They sat in silence for a while. The only sounds were the wind outside and the soft hum of the heater. Ben pulled out a food pack and started eating. Rena didn't touch hers. She just sat there, eyes closed, breathing slow. "You don't have to like me," Ben said suddenly. "But you should know I didn't ask for this assignment. I came here because I believe peace is still possible."
Ow.
Rena opened her eyes slowly. "Peace. Your kind doesn't know the meaning of that word." Ben didn't argue. Instead, he finished eating and lay down on the floor mat. He closed his eyes, but he didn't sleep. The cold made it hard. He heard Rena get up, walk to the window, stand there for a long time. In the middle of the night, the station lights flickered. Ben sat up quickly, alert. Rena was already standing with a weapon in hand, looking toward the door. "What is it?" Ben asked. "I don't know. Stay back." A sound echoed outside like soft footsteps in the dirt. Ben moved closer to Rena then, a loud bang. The door shook. Rena raised her weapon, ready. Ben grabbed a small tool from his bag, nothing special, just something to defend himself if needed. The door opened slowly, and a tall figure stepped in. It wore a mask and held a blade. Behind it, 2 others followed. "Rebels," Rena whispered. The masked one pointed at Ben. "Leave the alien. The human dies." Ben stepped forward. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to talk." The masked one moved fast, rushing at Ben. Before Ben could react, Rena fired her weapon. The blast hit the attacker in the leg. The other 2 charged in, but Ben swung his tool and struck one in the arm. It wasn't enough. One rebel tackled Ben and slammed him against the wall. Rena turned and shot again, forcing the last one to retreat. The injured rebel ran after his friend, dragging the third out. Rena rushed over to Ben. "Are you hurt?" "Just a little dizzy," he said, holding his side. She helped him sit down. Her hands trembled slightly as she checked his head for cuts. "Why did you protect me?" he asked. "Because if you died, I'd have to explain it, and that sounds like more trouble than you're worth." Ben gave her a tired smile. "Take that as a thank you." She looked at him and didn't say anything, but this time her eyes weren't cold. Morning came with a quiet wind blowing outside the rest station. Ben slowly sat up, holding his side. The bruise from last night's fight still hurt, but it wasn't too bad. He looked over and saw Rena sitting by the window, fully awake. She hadn't slept. She was staring at the empty land beyond the hills, her face unreadable. "Morning," Ben said quietly. She turned just slightly, then looked away again. "We leave in 10 minutes. Ben nodded and began to pack. A broken door still hung off its hinge, and the marks from the rebels were fresh on the floor. Even though they were gone, their message was clear: humans were not welcome. They got into the pod without talking much. Rena took the controls, and Ben sat beside her. The pod lifted gently and continued its path toward the capital. It was silent at first, filled only with the soft hum of the engine. "Thanks for last night," Ben said after a while. Rena didn't answer at first. Then she spoke, her voice quiet. "Don't mistake my actions. I did it because I had no choice." I gave a small smile. "I didn't." She glanced at him for a moment, then returned her eyes to the path ahead. The terrain outside was rocky and dry. The scars of war were everywhere: burnt fields, ruined towers, and broken machines left to rust. Ben watched silently, taking in the damage. It wasn't just buildings that were broken. It was trust, hope, maybe even kindness. "This land used to be green," Rena said suddenly, "before your people came." Ben looked at her. "I've read the reports, but they don't show this." He pointed out the window. "Of course not," she said. "Your reports only show your side." Ben didn't defend it. Instead, he asked, "Why did you become part of the Peace Council if you hate humans so much?" Rena's grip on the controls tightened. She didn't answer right away. "Someone had to keep watch," she said at last. "Someone who remembers." Ben nodded. "That's fair." The pod jolted slightly as it passed through an old energy barrier. It flickered and sparked, but let them through. They were entering an old security zone now, one of the last before the capital. Suddenly, the pod screen blinked red. Rena frowned and tapped the controls. "There's interference," she said. "Something's wrong." A sharp screech came through the radio. Static, then silence. "Can you fix it?" Ben asked. "I'll try, but we may have to stop again." They searched for a safe place to land and found a sheltered valley. The pod lowered onto the cracked ground, and Rena stepped out to check the antenna. Ben followed, watching the sky nervously. "You really don't like staying still, do you?" he said. "No," Rena replied. "Because when you stay still, someone always comes for you." She worked quickly, hands moving with focus. Ben looked around. The wind was stronger here, and the hills echoed faint sounds. He kept one hand near, his small defense tool, just in case. "How did you know those rebels were coming last night?" he asked. "I didn't," she said. "I just never sleep well when I'm near humans." Ben raised a brow. "Even harmless ones like me?" Rena gave him a hard look. "You think you're harmless?" Ben smiled. "I hope so." She shook her head and went back to work. After a while, the screen on her device turned green. "Fixed. Let's go." They got back inside and continued the journey. Rena drove with both hands on the controls, eyes forward. Ben leaned back and watched her. "You're good at this?" he said. "I was trained for it." "Military?" H nodded. "Long ago. Before I joined the council." Ben tilted his head. "So you've seen war. I've lived it." They didn't speak after that. The silence was heavier now, filled with things neither of them wanted to say. But Ben didn't mind the silence. Not this kind. The pod moved over smoother land now. They were getting closer. The capital was only hours away, as evening neared. They saw the distant lights of the capital city. Tall towers stood behind giant walls. Security drones hovered above. The air was clearer here, but colder too. "We'll arrive soon," Rena said. "You'll stay in the guest quarters." "Don't go wandering." "I never do," Ben said with a light smile. The pod touched down at the outer gate. Officials came forward to scan them. One of them, a tall male with bright red markings, stared hard at Ben. "You shouldn't have come," the officer said. "I came to help," Ben replied calmly. "Help?" The officer scoffed. "Remember the last time humans helped?" Rena stepped in. "He's under council protection." The officer frowned, but said nothing more. They were allowed through. As they entered the city, Ben looked around. It was cleaner than the outer lands, but colder in mood. No one smiled. No one waved. Every eye was cautious. Many were angry inside the council building. Ben was shown to his room. Simple, clean, and quiet. Rena stayed at the door. "Someone." "We'll come for you in the morning," she said. "What about you?" "I have duties." Ben paused. "Rena, if you ever want to talk, I don't." "Okay," he said gently, "but thank you anyway." "For watching my back." She stared at him for a moment. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. Ben sat on the small bed, listening to the silence. The city outside was quiet, but it felt like a storm was hiding beneath it. There was pain here, anger, history, and in the middle of it all, he saw one person trying to carry too much of that weight alone. The next day, Ben stood in the large council garden. It was quiet, with strange glowing plants and a smooth stone path. Even though he was in the middle of the city, it felt peaceful here. Still, his thoughts were not calm. He kept remembering Rena's words from the day before about her sister, about the war, and about her pain. He hadn't expected her to open up. She had always kept a wall between them. But now, a small crack had formed. He didn't know what it meant yet, but he knew it was important. Rena walked into the garden. She wore a light brown cloak now, different from her sharp uniform. Her steps were quiet, but confident. "You're early," she said. "Couldn't sleep," Ben replied. "The council meeting left a lot in my head. It always does," Rena said. "But they didn't shout you out of the room, so that's a start." Ben smiled faintly. "Progress. We leave again in 1 hour," she said. "A village near the border is asking for help. Most of their systems are failing. You'll come with me."
Is
"Is this part of the peace tour?" he asked. "No. It's my duty. But since you're here, you can observe or carry your bag," Ben joked. Rena gave the tiniest smile. Maybe they traveled in a new transport pod. This one was smaller and older, making more noise as it flew low over the dry lands. The ride was bumpy, but the view outside was wide and clear. Ruins of old cities passed below. Broken roads, burned fields, sometimes small signs of rebuilding. Inside the pod, Ben tried to break the silence. "Did your sister like gardens?" he asked softly. Rena blinked. The question surprised her. "She used to grow plants," she said slowly, "even during the war. She believed that life should keep moving." She said green things reminded her of peace. "She sounds like someone I would have liked," Ben said. Rena looked out the window. She liked humans too. She thought you had kindness. She trusted too easily. Ben didn't know what to say. He didn't want to argue or defend anything. He just wanted to understand her better. The pod landed near a small village built on reddish dirt. Houses were made of stone and metal scraps. Many Veltrionians came out to stare at Ben. Their faces were not friendly. "Stay behind me," Rena said. They met the village leader, an old woman with silver lines on her face. She nodded at Rena, then looked at Ben with tired eyes. "You bring a human here? He's not a threat," Rena said firmly. "He listens. That's more than most." The old woman said nothing, then turned and walked toward a broken energy tower. The rest of the day, Rena worked with local engineers while Ben helped carry tools and translate human tech files. Slowly, the energy system began to work again. Lights flickered in houses that had been dark for weeks. Some children came near Ben, curious. They didn't speak, but one handed him a small flower made from scrap metal and blue thread. He smiled and nodded. "Thank you." Rena saw the moment. She didn't say anything, but something in her eyes softened again. As evening came, the village shared a simple meal? Ben and Rena sat on the edge of the circle watching as small lights were lit across the village. This is the first time they've had power in weeks, Rena said. They won't say it, but they're grateful. You? Ben asked. Are you still angry at me? Rena was quiet for a long time. Then she said, yes, but not as much. I'll take that, Ben said with a small grin. The wind grew colder. They returned to the pod to rest. Inside it was warmer, but the seats were stiff and space was tight. We'll return in the morning, Rena said. Sleep if you can. Only if you promise not to zap me in my sleep, Ben teased. Rena shook her head. You're more annoying than dangerous. They both laughed a little. It was the first time the sound felt real between them, as night deepened. Rena leaned back and closed her eyes. Ben sat beside her, his eyes watching the stars through the small window. He didn't know when it happened. But after some time, Rena's head slowly tilted toward him. Her shoulder touched his. Then, without a word, she rested her head on his arm and fell asleep. Ben froze at first. He didn't dare move. He looked down at her peaceful face. For someone who claimed to hate humans, she seemed calm now. Safe. He smiled softly and whispered, maybe you don't hate all of us. Outside, the stars watched silently as two strangers, once enemies, shared a quiet moment of peace. Morning sun peeked through the clouded sky as the pod hummed gently, floating over red hills and cracked plains. Rena stirred first. Her eyes blinked open and she slowly lifted her head from Ben's shoulder. For a second, her eyes were calm. Then she realized where she was and who she was leaning on. She sat up quickly and looked away. You should have woken me. Ben smiled lightly. You looked peaceful. I didn't want to ruin that. Rena didn't respond. She pulled her cloak tighter and stared out the window. Her mind raced with confusion. Why had she let her guard down? Why did she feel less angry now when Ben spoke? They flew in silence for a while. Pod made its way back to the capital. Ben didn't push her to talk. He understood enough. Sometimes silence was safer than words. Once they arrived, the council was already waiting. Report, the head counselor said, standing at the center of the room. We heard you restored energy to the border village. We did, Rena said, and the human helped. Some council members looked surprised. Others looked unhappy. He was accepted, one asked. Not at first, Rena replied. He showed them respect. The children even gave him a gift. There was a murmur across the chamber. Ben stood beside Rena, keeping his hands behind his back. He didn't speak unless asked. And what do you think, Counselor Rena? Another elder asked. Has your view of the humans changed? Rena paused. All eyes turned toward her. She knew her answer mattered. This human is not like the ones who destroyed our homes, she said clearly. He listens. He protects. He doesn't carry weapons or pride. Maybe he came to fix what others broke. The room went quiet. The elder with blue markings stood slowly. Or maybe he came to earn your trust. And once he does, the humans will send more. You speak with fear, Ben said calmly. But I came alone. I came to listen, not conquer. I know your pain won't vanish because of kind words, but I'll stand here until I earn a place in this peace. Some counselors looked unsure. One of them leaned forward. We've seen recordings. The pod surveillance shows Counselor Rena asleep on your shoulder. Explain that. Ben blinked. Rena stiffened. It was a long night, Ben said, trying not to smile. We were both tired. Your body language suggests trust, the elder said. Closeness. So what? Rena said firmly. Is peace only possible if we remain strangers? We shared a mission. Survived rebels. We fixed a broken village. Are you afraid of peace, or are you just afraid of change? The room grew tense. The council whispered among themselves. After a pause, the lead elder spoke. We will discuss this in private. You are dismissed. Rena and Ben left the chamber. They walked together down the long hall, their footsteps soft on the stone floor. They watched us, Ben asked quietly. Every pod has recorders, Rena said. It's protocol, so they saw everything. Yes, Ben laughed softly. Well, that's awkward. Rena gave him a sideways glance. They won't understand it. Not yet. Do you understand it? Rena stopped walking. She looked at him. I don't hate you, she said. Not anymore. Ben nodded. I know. They walked again, slower. Now, that evening, Ben stood on the balcony of his guest quarters, looking out at the glowing city lights. The view was beautiful but distant, like a painting too far to touch. Rena arrived quietly. She didn't knock. She simply stood beside him, hands in her cloak. They think we're too close, she said. Are we? Rena took a breath. Closer than I planned to be. Ben smiled. Me too. They looked at the sky together. 2 moons hung high above. 1 blue, 1 gold. When I was young, Rena said, my sister used to say the blue moon watched over gentle souls, and the gold one watched over warriors. Which one watches over us? Ben asked. I don't know, she said softly. Maybe both. A light breeze passed between them. Ben didn't say anything more, neither did she, but the silence between them now held something warm. The next morning, the capital felt different. Ben sensed it as soon as he stepped into the hallway. Guards stood in pairs, where there had been none before. Workers whispered behind corners. Something was happening, something not right. He met Rena at the west gate of the council tower. She was already geared up, a small device strapped to her arm and a sharp look in her eyes. What's going on? Ben asked. Security was increased overnight, she said. There was an explosion in Sector 9, an attack. They're calling it an accident, Rena said, but the place was too secure for that, and a message was left behind. What kind of message? Rena pulled a thin sheet from her pocket. It showed a strange symbol, a jagged circle wrapped in fire with 4 alien letters carved beside it. Ben stared at it. What does it say? Remove the human or lose the council? Rena translated quietly. Ben didn't say anything. His chest tightened. They're blaming you, she added. Someone wants to stop the talks. They think taking you out will fix everything. Ben kept his voice steady. Do you think it was the rebels again? No, Rena said. This came from inside the city. Maybe even from someone close to the council. What do we do? Stay calm. Stay smart. Trust me, Rena said. You'll need to. They moved through the city together, avoiding open paths. Rena took him through back alleys and narrow streets. Everywhere, people stared at Ben longer than usual. Some with fear, some with hate. We're being watched, Ben said. I know, Rena replied. We're heading to an old communications tower. We can access the central security feed there, see who entered the area before the blast. The tower stood on a small hill just outside the government center. The building was half ruined, but parts of it still worked. Inside, dust floated. In the sunlight, an old machine clicked to life as Rena connected her tablet. Ben kept watch near the window. Below, shadows moved across the street, figures standing still too long. Some had masks. They're here, he said quietly. Rena's fingers moved faster. Buy me time. Ben grabbed a metal bar from the corner and blocked the door. Just in time, a loud thud shook the room. Then another. How many? Rena asked. At least 3. Maybe more. I'm almost in. Hold them. The door cracked. A hand reached through. Ben slammed the bar down hard, and the arm pulled back. But the attackers didn't stop. Rena cursed softly, then said, Got it. On her screen, images flickered camera. Feeds from the council building, the energy station, and the blast site. One feed showed a figure placing a device at the wall. He wore a dark robe. His face was hidden. Rena froze. That's Counselor Varen. Ben blinked. One of your own? He never wanted peace. He voted against the human talks from the start. He blamed humans for everything, even when evidence said otherwise. What do we do with this? Rena copied the footage to her device, then turned. We get out of here and show it to the council. They need to know. The door burst open. 3 masked attackers charged in. Ben stepped forward, holding the bar. Go, I'll slow them down. Rena hesitated. Don't you dare let them take you. Ben smiled. You said to trust you. I do, now trust me. Rena gave one sharp nod, then slipped through the side exit. The attackers lunged at Ben. He blocked the first swing, ducked the second, and kicked one of them into a wall. They were strong, but Ben moved fast, using the bar like a shield and club. Meanwhile, Rena dashed through narrow alleys, her feet silent on the stone. She activated her hidden link and called the council guard. Send backup to Cum Tower Sector 3. Code Firesky. Repeat. Firesky. She reached the main square just as guards arrived. She ran straight into the council chamber, ignoring the voices shouting at her to stop. I have proof, she yelled. Councillor Varen planted the device. He's trying to stop the peace talks by blaming the human. The lead counselor stepped down. Show us. Rena placed her device on the table. The screen lit up. The footage played. The room went silent. This cannot be, one elder whispered. But the image was clear. Varen's face was visible now. His hand placed the explosive. His lips mouthed the words, no more humans. Then, Ben walked in, bruised, tired, but alive. You made it, Rena said, eyes wide. Barely, Ben replied. They ran when the guards showed up. Council looked at the two of them standing side by side. Scarred but unshaken. The lead elder finally said, Councillor Varen will be arrested. We will not let fear control our decisions. Peace stands. Ben looked at Rena. You saved me. You saved yourself, she said softly. I just cleared the path. Ben gave a quiet smile. So, we're still a team? Rena nodded, till the end. The sun rose slowly over the capital city. Golden light spilled across the tall buildings, touching even the broken stone walls and damaged towers. It was the first peaceful morning in many weeks. The rebels had gone silent. The city guards were calm, and Varan, the counselor who tried to destroy the peace, was now behind bars. Ben stood on the council tower balcony, breathing in the cool morning air. He looked out at the city he had once feared. Now it felt like something new. Not perfect, not healed, but different. Rena walked up beside him, holding 2 warm drinks in metal cups. She handed one to Ben. Thanks, he said with a smile. What is it? Spiced root tea. She replied. My sister used to make it. Ben took a sip. Was strong, bitter, and strangely comforting. I guess the council doesn't hate me now, said. Some of them still do, Rena said, not hiding the truth. But most of them saw what you did, what we did, that matters. Ben looked at her. And you? Do you still hate me? Rena smiled softly. No. I stopped hating you the moment you stood between me and danger without thinking twice. They stood in silence for a while, watching the city move below. People walked calmly through the streets. Workers repaired lights. Children laughed in the alleyways. It was a small beginning, but it was real. Later that day, the council held one final meeting. All members sat in a wide circle, with both Rena and Ben standing in the center. Ambassador Ben, the lead elder said, we questioned your presence. We doubted your intentions, but you have shown courage, honesty, and a heart willing to carry our pain. We cannot forget what happened in the past, but today, we choose not to repeat it. Ben bowed his head respectfully. We will send a message to Earth, the elder continued. The talks will continue, and you will remain as our first human bridge. The chamber filled with soft applause, small but genuine. After the meeting, Rena and Ben walked through the garden where they had once sat in silence. The glowing plants swayed gently. The wind was cool. So what now? Ben asked. Now you work, Rena said. A lot. Meetings, translations, food complaints, and hearing every little voice from every little village. Ben groaned. Sounds exhausting, good, she said. You deserve it? Ben chuckled. Will you still be around? Rena looked at him with a raised brow. You think I'm letting you mess this up without me watching? I hope not. They walked together under the trees. Ben stopped and turned to her. Rena, I never came here expecting anything. I didn't plan to change anyone's mind. But I'm glad I met you. Rena lowered her head for a moment. I said I hated humans, she whispered. But you weren't. Like the ones I remembered. You listened. You didn't try to fix everything. You just stayed. Ben nodded. Sometimes staying is the hardest part. The wind blew gently again. Rena stepped closer. When my sister died, she said, I thought everything inside me died too. I feel like maybe she would have liked you. Maybe she would have told me to give you a chance. Ben didn't say anything. He just stood there waiting. Then slowly, Rena reached for his hand. Her fingers were cold, but they held tightly. You're not like the others, she said, and I'm not the same as I was before. Ben smiled. Then maybe we're both new. The sky turned pink with evening light. The two of them walked through the garden, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as two people who crossed a long bridge of pain, fear, and misunderstanding and met in the middle. That night, on the transport deck, as they prepared for another mission to a nearby city, Rena leaned her head against Ben's shoulder again. This time she didn't apologize, and Ben didn't freeze. He smiled quietly. Peace didn't come with loud speeches or big promises. Sometimes it came in the form of a quiet moment, where the one who once said, I hate humans, now trusted a human enough to fall asleep beside him, and that was enough to begin something new. The end.